Major funding for Carolina Business Review is provided by Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health, including Presbyterian in Charlotte and Forsyth in Winston-Salem, are affiliate heart hospitals of the Cleveland Clinic, consistently ranked #1 in the nation for heart care. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, proudly serving South Carolinians since 1946. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Well, it sounds a bit facetious, but it seems hard to remember a time when we were not in an election cycle. The irony is now we are in an election year. It is evident coming off the South Carolina presidential primary, and what could be this year is a sea change in Tar Heel State's gubernatorial race and legislative landscape. Welcome again to the most widely watched source for Carolina business and public policy. For 20 years now, I'm Chris William, and thank you for supporting us that long. With us, 4 regional chamber execs wade into the current debate.
Major funding also by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, health care, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising health care costs? Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. This edition of Carolina Business Review was recorded February 17, 2012. On this week's program, Tom Dayvault of the High Point Chamber of Commerce, Ben Haskew of the Greenville Chamber of Commerce, Ted Hall of the Montross Area Chamber of Commerce, and Ike McLeese of the Greater Columbia Chamber of Commerce. Now, Chris William.
Hello, welcome to our program. This is going to be exciting because I don't think there's anyone on this table or on this panel that doesn't have an opinion. Am I right about that?
That's pretty safe.
I think you're right.
Well, welcome to all of you. Good to have you here. Ted, welcome. Ben, good to have you here. Tom, always nice to see you. And
good
Ike,
to see you.
You know, I really had to kind of pinch myself because we've been trying to get you back in the studio for a long time, and you actually came. So
delighted to be here.
Thank you. Ike, I'm going to start with you. South Carolina presidential politics, always fun to watch, and so was the primary in the Palmetto State this time, as it normally is. But now, now it's business down to business. We've got 2012. You've been in the legislative session. What are you hoping is going to come out of this year, and especially given that it's a general election year in the United States and there's a lot of attention around discussion around public policy, around transportation, around education, and all those things. Are you going to get something out of the State House?
We generally were told not to expect much from this session. Yesterday, the Senate passed a major restructuring of state government. Has to go back to the House because their versions differ. But maybe it will be more productive than we had been told. I certainly hope so, because we have some lingering issues with tort reform. We have major transportation infrastructure issues, the Port of Charleston issue. There's a lot for the legislature to pay attention to instead of chasing some of the rabbits they normally chase.
Yeah. It's a good way to put it. Ben, you're in the upstate, kind of looking at this in a different point of view. Is there anything you want, not just to add to Ike, but do you expect that this is going to be a modest year from that?
I think so. I think we've heard the same thing. And it's an election year for, House and Senate members. And so once we get beyond the filing deadline, I think end of March, we'll see what we're really going to get out of this legislative session. We're a part, Columbia, Greenville, and other metro chambers involved in a couple of these issues. One Ike mentioned on tort reform, also very interested, and it's a top item with our membership on comprehensive tax reform in South Carolina. We had some changes and came out of the legislature a few years ago that shifted $250 million of taxation to business. That's not good from a business climate point of view. And as Ike mentioned, the Port of Charleston, the deepening of that harbor so that we stay competitive in the world, especially as the new ship sizes come through the the expanded Panama Canal. Very important to the upstate of South Carolina because 60% of what goes through the Port of Charleston comes out of the upstate.
And Ben, good point, and I want to spend more time on this, but trying to get those containers up from the port in the low country on I-26, as we all know, if you've ever driven that only one time, you know that can be a bit of a tight walk. Yeah. But I want to come back to that. Tom, Ted will get you to weigh in on this, and especially in North Carolina. Tom, don't you get the sense, here we have pretty historic that North Carolina, maybe for the first time, could be controlled by the Republicans, and God forbid, in some parts of the state, have a governor from Charlotte again. You know, I say that a bit facetiously, but there seems like there are a lot of lame ducks in the General Assembly this year. Do you think they're going to try to get something done knowing that they are lame ducks and this is their final shot? Or do you think they're going to sit on their hands? What do you think will come out?
Well, I think that, well, for the first time in 100 years, we have a Republican-led legislature in both the House and the Senate. So I think most of the lame ducks that are occurring are coming from that Democrat Party, and I think that they will probably not be able to push things through that they would like to, even as lame ducks. It's going to be an interesting year. You got the Democrat National Convention happening right here in our state, and we went from a red state to a blue state in the last election, and then the General Assembly switched back over. It's an interesting time right now in state politics.
Yeah, you know, I think North Carolina Free, Jonathan from North Carolina Free called it, we seem to be a purple state at this point. You know, and the Democrats are spending a lot of money, but that's not a foregone conclusion that they're going to have that kind of strength, that it's really up for grabs. Ted, in some of the smaller chambers, in some of the smaller communities, do politics at that level, whether it's in Raleigh or Columbia, does it really matter?
It does matter. It matters the restrictions and the taxation on our small businesses in the small chambers. And,
right.
And we're engaged on an almost daily basis with our local delegations. For example, we got a retiring legislator in Gaston County, and the amount of interest in running for that seat, that's Bill Current.
Right.
And we've already have 4 Republican filers to run for his seat. So I think there's a lot of interest out there in politics, and it does matter a great deal to the small businesses and the small chambers and the small communities.
Let's come back to the issue about transportation. This is really kind of crucial. We've talked on this program recently about the I-95 corridor, the I-26 corridor. Otis Rawle was here from the South Carolina Chamber talking about it. How critical is that issue, or not just about I-26, Ike, but how critical is this transportation need at this point?
Well, transportation infrastructure is the spinal cord of economic development.
And is it ambulatory?
Yes. I think that we are so far behind in South Carolina. We have dug a pretty deep hole for ourselves. We have not changed our gasoline tax since 1987, I believe.
That's right, 1987.
And it's not indexed for inflation. So I think we've got, and moving the products to the Port of Charleston are becoming a bit more difficult. I drove 26 to Charleston just recently. It is in bad need of repair, let alone expansion. So I think we have some very serious, and Ben's, a lot of the manufacturing is in his area, and those products have to get to the port. And that's just one aspect of it. Then we've got the local transportation issues within Richland County. We supported a penny sales tax last year, failed by around 2,100 votes. We're back at it this year, trying to get the council to get it back on the ballot because transportation infrastructure within the county is far from what it should be to support what we have now, let alone growth.
Is it about the repair of roads? Is it around design around new roads? What is it?
Well, and I don't know if Ike would agree with this or not, but you know what we're hearing out of Columbia, up in the upstate, is that there's still this issue in South Carolina around restructuring the South Carolina DOT, and that's going to have to happen before any change in funding happens. We've got to get down that road, but I think we've got both challenges. We've got the challenge of maintaining a large number of roads in South Carolina, probably on a per capita basis more than most states. and then building any new roads is almost impossible because we can't make the funding match with the federal government.
Well, we're attempting to do that in Gaston County through the toll system. And a road that's called the Garden Parkway that we've been working on since 1960 in Gaston County to get another bridge across the Catawba River in southern Gaston County. And that goes by the Daniel Stowe Botanical Garden, so it's earned the name Garden Parkway. The money for it has been allocated by the General Assembly, but we're having to fight really hard to keep that allocation. And it's critical to economic development, economic health of Gaston County, that we tie that road across the southern end of the county into the airport area.
You know, Ted, that's a good point. It's a toll road, and we don't talk about toll roads a lot.
We're going to have to.
Our toll roads, would they be the saving grace? You know a little something about a toll road.
Yeah, we got a toll road nobody uses.
Why
the
would
Southern
we want to build
Connector
another
in
one?
Greenville. Yeah, I mean it opened up a pathway of new land for industrial development. It's a beautiful highway, but the tolls themselves are keeping the majority of traffic off that road. It's still too easy to go around that connector and just use the normal interstates. Our governor was at our annual meeting of the chamber last night, and one of the things she said that is so true about both of our states, and you alluded to it, I think, we make stuff in these states. We are still manufacturing states. And whether it goes to the port or not, we're linked across both the Carolinas, this entire region, with Interstate 85, 95, 77. And, this is an issue about connectivity and economic development.
Tom?
Chris, there's a saying in North Carolina that there's nothing more political than asphalt. I think that applies to South Carolina too. The challenges are in front of us, but truly, I agree with Ike. It is the absolute core of our economic system. We've got to have good transportation, and now, not only is it just the ports, but it's truckload after truckload after truckload. It's not about cars especially anymore, it's about economy.
Mm-hmm. We could get into that, and I call it a morass of a debate around the ports issue. It needs to be done. It needs to happen. I don't want to go down there and spend all of our capital here on this program talking about that, but, we talk about it sometimes ad nauseum on this program. But let me come back to something. And you said something very interesting here, Tom. You talk about it being of the highest priorities in the Carolinas. We've heard that same issue when we've had folks like Harris Pastides on, or Mick Zayas, or Tom Ross from the UNC system, and of course I'm talking about education. So how do we prioritize that? How do we allocate the resources that we need to do? And I know all of you have that agenda around education. Sure. So how do you decide which child is going to get the allocation? Anyone?
Very tough issue. I will tell you, though, that some of us have been around the chamber world for a while. Education was not even on the radar screen early in our careers. Now you'd be hard-pressed to find a chamber anywhere in America that education's not a forefront issue. It is always a sustainable issue that we have to keep pushing. I would say that's why we're all in advocacy. You couldn't have said that about chambers several years ago. Now it's a high priority. It's always a balancing act. And if we leave our children behind, then we have lost our future. So we have to keep it all together. The
other thing I think that's happened is that, at least I see it in my time in chamber work, is, business people have realized that they are the customers of our education system. They've got to be invested in what happens there. We're looking for a new school superintendent in Greenville County, and thankfully our school board and the chamber are working together. We've met with the search firms. We're going to meet with the candidates, and that's a part of this whole effort. We've been, as a chamber organization in our schools for 10 years, teaching continuous improvement and Baldrige principles.
So which are core to quality output
Yes.
on corporations. But Ben, let me ask you that. So the chamber, the Greenville chamber, will have some say in who the next superintendent's going to be in Greenville County Schools.
We are being asked for our evaluation, and that will include the 3 finalists.
So let me ask you this. And again, this is not your first rodeo when we talk about chamber and education. And please jump in here, Ted. Who needs to drive this education dialogue? Is it business? Does business need to lead the charge? Is there some honest broker that can get everyone around a table? How does this thing around education need to go?
Well, as Ben said, we create most of the jobs that these folks coming out of the educational system will occupy. So I think we need to be very strong advocates of what type of education we need. One of the biggest challenges that we have had, and we've been dealing with it in the Columbia region, is getting people to understand what the jobs of the 21st century really look like, right, what they pay, and what kind of skill sets are required. And we have people dropping out of school because they know they're not going to be able to go to college, and there are plenty of opportunities available, but it's the connectivity with the available job and that information base is what we have concentrated on.
I think the business community really is stepping up. As an example, in Gaston County, through our Gaston Regional Chamber and our Chamber Alliance with some of the other chambers such as ours, we have a career climb program, the Gaston Career Climb, contributed to by foundations and corporations, which provides career readiness certifications to try to get our workforce more prepared for the new jobs that are coming. And when a new industry comes in, to be ready so that we can actually recruit industry, because we have a workforce that's certified to be career ready to take on the jobs that they would bring.
Does that help with a graduation rate specifically?
It does. It does. But primarily it is to show to recruit, an industry recruit that might be thinking about locating in Gaston County, that we have a workforce that is certified, capable of meeting your needs.
In North Carolina, Tom, the North Carolina Constitution, when it comes to education, says in some effect, and I use the quote, that it's for the common good, that they push education out, for the common good. Some will say, gosh, that sounds almost like a socialistic principle. But how do you make sure that education, number one, and maybe this is a question also to you, Ike, education and schools are not going to be profitable, at least in the sense of how a business defines profitability. But so how, as a business, do they kind of put to the side, it's not going to be profitable, but how do you optimize the product coming out of the schools?
Well, there is a disconnect. I agree with Ike completely. In a county, Guilford, that has 9.9 unemployment rate, we have businesses who are searching for people to fill jobs that they've got hundreds of them, and we do not have, they're not qualified to be there. So finally the education system is realizing that they've got to change. Our community colleges are stepping up and saying, we're going to be there to help. So at least that conversation is now having between the businesses that need the jobs and the folks who are providing the education to get them prepared. So
Ben, how long does it take the education system to retool to get those workers that are needed now, and when they do retool, will they still be $1 late?
Well, I think we're already behind. I mean, I think we're already behind, and I think several things we got to work on. One is the culture that we have. I mean, there's a leftover culture here that, a high school education maybe is okay, or maybe not even that. Well, everybody's got to get through high school. You've got to have something beyond high school. And then there is this group of people who may have been displaced from another job, or are looking for a job, who do not have the skills that meet the current jobs that are in the market. And so there are plenty of resources to deal with those things. I mentioned to you earlier, we've created this organization called Greenville Works, which is all of the agencies that come together. We're doing our call program on industry and business. That group comes back, we feed this information in, and we try to connect the resources to the employers. And then we've got to have the people training to make that happen. And we've got wonderful technical colleges and all the resources out there. But the big thing now in our community is advanced manufacturing. It's high paid. People don't have the skills. We've got to get them through training.
Ted, in a region that you operate in, kind of area dominant influence there, western Mecklenburg and Cleveland County and Cabarrus, or Caldwell County and Gaston County, Lincoln, that has taken a body blow in manufacturing. I mean, Lincoln, you look at Freightliner alone, and they're either cutting 1,000 people or hiring 800, or, you know, that goes on and on. So that would seem like it's a perfect incubator for folks to realize that they have to have these skills. Is that working there?
Well, yeah, I think it is, and Gaston County is an example of exactly what you said. We actually have fewer jobs in Gaston County today than we had in 1980. We're one of the only counties in the Charlotte region that has not significantly increased in employment during that time. So we're extremely challenged, and one of the things that we try to work on every day is job creation. In our small chamber with our small business members, it's usually 1 or 2 or 3 jobs at a time. Of course, we have a great economic development commission in the county that's recruiting on a larger scale than we are, but I think that's got to be our focus. It's the only way we're going to be able to recoup the jobs that have been lost in manufacturing. We've lost 30,000 jobs in manufacturing in the last 30 years in Gaston County, and you just can't recover that overnight.
One of the factors in this whole workforce issue is the number of people that will be exiting the military. And we are very much focused on that in our community. They are high skill, they're well trained, they're disciplined.
Do they want to, in your case, they want to stay in the area of Fort Jackson?
A lot of them are reservists that are now transitioning back to civilian soldiers, and they need their jobs back. And a lot of them, while they were deployed, their jobs went away. But we have people without jobs, but we have jobs without people, and we're trying to help match the military people coming back from the deployment with those jobs that are looking for people. We have a Hiring Heroes job fair in conjunction with the U.S. Chamber and the State Chamber on March the 6th. I think Ben and the folks in Charleston will be there monitoring how well we do. As of today, we have already blocked out all of the booths for the employers, and we have over 500 soldiers, and I think that will probably be 1,000 by March 6th.
So what about this, and you might have alluded to this already, Ike, but what about this phenomenon when you have a high unemployment rate and you have a lot of people out of work, but specifically manufacturing are poaching workers from other manufacturers and bypassing that pool of unemployed? Is that solely because they're not trainable or don't want to be trained?
Or haven't been.
Or haven't been.
Haven't been trained.
I think that's the key, haven't been trained.
Yeah.
And whose responsibility? Community college system, technical college system?
I think we all have a responsibility in that. And the worst thing we can do is point fingers. We all got to get together and say, we've got a community issue that we've got to solve together. And quite frankly, the dialogue between education and business has not been there in the past. I see that it is becoming more and more a part of the daily conversation.
Primary education, higher education?
Every bit of it.
Who fosters that?
I think that's been the role of chambers. In many instances, we've looked back and said we're supposed to take care of our entire business community. And it's not just one business where we may have that one business who comes to us and says, oh, we need your help right away. I think we all realize that it's our job to bring everybody together to the table to solve these issues.
It's still connectivity. We had one of our plants looking for welders. We have started a program called MEBA, which is the Education and Business Alliance. And so we got the people from the technical college, the welders who are currently employed at Nucor, into the high schools with actual welding assignments.
And
letting
this is
the
a
kids,
Nucor plant?
Yes, in Gaston.
Yeah.
And the kids, all of a sudden, you see the light coming on when some guy in cowboy boots and blue jeans and a T-shirt says, I used to be right where you are. I decided to be a welder, and today I'm making $80,000 a year. All of a sudden, the light goes on. That's the point that we are not making the connection that we should be making.
Yeah. Gentlemen, you know, we could talk more about this. We're out of time, and we'll have you all back. Promise, Ike. I know you said we haven't been chasing you down, but all of y'all, if I can say that. Okay. Thank you for being on the program. Tom, good to have you here.
Thank
Welcome.
you very much.
Ike, nice to see you.
Delighted to see you again,
trip.
Chris.
Yeah, thank you. Please come back, Ben.
I will, Chris.
Always welcome
Thank you.
here.
Yeah.
And Ted, good luck over in Gaston County and Belmont and Montross, and it's all good.
Thank you much, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you for watching our program. We certainly hope that all your business is good and that you have a nice weekend as well. Good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by The Duke Endowment, a private foundation in Charlotte enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton, an international accounting, tax, and business advisory organization dedicated to serving middle-market companies. Grant Thornton, a passion for the business of accounting. Novant Health, including Presbyterian in Charlotte and Forsyth in Winston-Salem, are affiliate heart hospitals of the Cleveland Clinic, consistently ranked #1 in the nation for heart care. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, proudly serving South Carolinians since 1946. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.com.